Well, do we
So
have
we have
everybody
all,
here?
I think we have everyone here. Scott's calling in, so
Okay,
Hey,
I know
Alderman
Alderman
Burnett's on.
Burnett was calling in as well.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Is that Alderman Burnett? Yep.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, if the board's ready to get started, we can get going with the workshop. I just remind everybody if you are on your phone and want to make a comment, you may just want to state your name so we have you on record, and those at home watching can know who is speaking if you can't see you on the video. This first workshop item and only workshop item tonight is discussion of Mcphee Park. I think the board's well aware we've been working on Mcphee Park for several months now. The phase of development that we are on is on your screen. Currently includes a large great lawn area in the middle, a loop road connecting another entrance to the park, along with a large pavilion, as well as 4 tennis courts and parking associated with that. Large grading site going on. And that's all thankfully been completed now, and they're working on. I think if you've been out there recently, you've seen the road. The base of the road has been put in, and they are working feverishly on all the other areas of the park. So things are going well. We're hoping to have a summertime opening for the park. Recently, and in discussions with some of our some people in town, there's been some discussions about what can we do with the rest of the park, which on your screen is shown by a lot of trees, all toward the western side, north and south of the current work that's being done. Our current master plan for the park shows that we've got again an amphitheater planned, a playground planned, a dog park, disc golf, and so all of these areas are planned or have been planned according to the master plan that we have back in 2017, I believe is the last update that we had. I think Sue may be online. She can correct me for all these things that I get incorrect when I'm talking to you. Um, but this master plan was before we did some changes to the tennis facility, added some courts, moved some things around. So I'm going to try to draw this kind of a rough sketch line on your screen that shows kind of somewhere in this area where the tennis courts stop and the grading for that stops, and then the rest of the park moves on from there. That obviously has an impact to where the dog park was going to be located. It has an impact to where the playground and kind of associated area was going to be located. Um, we've been in some discussions with a trail builder who builds single track. Think about like dirt tracks, running tracks, mountain bike tracks, and he came out and discussed with us, and we were asking him if we thought we could do disc golf and trails kind of in and work it in and out of each other. And he basically said he didn't think that was a great idea because you don't want to mix the two, as some runners, hikers, bikers may be interacting, and disc golf, disc frisbees get thrown and hit their heads or hit whatever as they're running through. So he just thought that would not be the best solution. And he's done that once or twice and said it didn't work out great. So um, his thoughts were if you want to build trails, he thought there could be easily a mile, maybe even 2 miles of trails looped back there. But it really depends on what we want to do and what the board wants to do with other future elements of the park. Um, I think this area kind of in here is probably your flattest area, and that's where the current Dimick house is right now. Certainly, a dog park could be moved to that location if that's something the board's interested in. But this workshop is really just to get the board's feedback. Again, we have a donor that is interested in donating money for a trail system out there. We do not have a final number yet from that donor, but they are working on that, hopefully trying to get some money together by the end of this year. So again, as soon as I know more, I can let you know. But this is really just trying to get some feedback from the board on any process you'd like us to go through, look at any additional information, and just general feedback on those thoughts and ideas that I just presented before you. So with that, I'll be quiet and try to answer any questions that the board may have.
David, this is Louise. I'm not opposed to any of this. I certainly want to make sure that we leave room, we have room dedicated to a decent dog park, because I know that has been top on the list and been something a lot of residents are asking for. But with regard to the trails, are they usable by, like you said, bikes, but hikers? And can hikers use this trail as well? Is it just meant to be for people who bike, or can you explain that to me?
Well, I think that probably need to have more discussion with the board on what you really want to have. A mountain, if you design it for mountain bikes, which is really you wouldn't ride a road bike on this area. But if you design it for mountain bikes, it would be designed a little differently. You would
Okay.
have some curves and maybe not so steep of sections. We were certainly thinking this would be more of like a beginner level type of area because it's not a lot of area to work with. It's not, 6 or 7 miles of trails. We're talking 1 to 2. So it'd be something where you could walk, you could run if you want to. But certainly if you want to do mountain biking, we'd have to look into that and see what could be done.
Well, and I guess that's my question is, I would feel more comfortable if we actually kind of narrowed down the options for this park and did another survey. I don't know how difficult that is to do, but we do need to make sure that the people that are utilizing this park are actually going to utilize, uh, want what we put in. So we would hate to put in an amenity that actually nobody really is going to use. So I would want to survey. I'm not opposed to this, but I would like to understand where the people, certainly the people that are utilizing this park or live close to this park, what they want to see. And that's my only concern, is that we don't really have an updated survey with, now that we know that we'll probably put, if we're having an amphitheater, we'll probably try to put that in our town center. Um, what does the rest of this park look like? And that's my only issue.
Louise, I'll just let you know you're breaking up a little bit on your end of things. You may want to click your video off and see if that helps.
Okay, I'll take my video off. Thank you for letting me know.
Sure.
Did my
Hey, David,
my
this is Alderman
concerns come
Burnett.
through though?
Yes, I think I understood that if the rest of the board members did.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Alderman Burnett.
Okay, yeah, a little bit along with what Alderman Pavlin said, or Vice Mayor Pavlin said. Um, I'm not as necessarily wanting to resurvey at the moment, but I do think updating the master plan would be very smart, just knowing how the tennis complex has shifted and how a few things have changed from the master plan. So I do think it'd be smart to relook at the master plan, especially as we consider grants for the future. And then, I like the idea of the dog park back where the house is, in that flat area, and then having, a hillside at the back where dogs can play. As far as what I started wanting or brought up as far as a bike path goes, or a mountain bike trail, I do think that definitely needs to be along the lines of what you see at Concord Park. The walking, the biking, it just goes hand in hand. Anybody can walk it without being in a biker's way, and anybody can bike it without being in a walker's way. You'll have to scoot to the side, but I do think there is a very, very high demand in bikes right now. If you visit any of our, I believe, 2 local bike shops, you won't find any bikes. You won't find many bikes. It's something that has just gone crazy with COVID and kind of really spiked to a new high. So I do think it'll be a great element to add. And, when I brought this up, it was hoping that there would be some money left over. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but now considering we have a donor to look at that as well, I think kind of along the lines of when I brought the basketball court, and now it's kind of morphed into a sport court where we can do a bunch of things. I think this type of a walking, biking trail can meet a few different needs at the same time. So, yeah, I'm up for re-looking at the master plan, considering some things have changed, and very much in support of making that biking, walking trail.
This is Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Meyer.
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
Appreciate that. I'm not sure about updating the master plan. I think that costs us a bunch of money every time we ask them to update these plans, so I'd be careful with that request. I agree with everything that's been said so far. I like the dog park back there in that area. I think once we find somebody that's willing to put the dog park in for us, I think they can probably tell us where the best spot back there would be. As far as the trails, I've told a lot of people for the last couple of years that we were going to have walking trails back there through the disc golf area. So I use the Concord Park trails a lot. I've enjoyed them. I know there are bikers out there as well. I think whatever we do here, as far as putting in our own trail through the wooded area, we need to make sure it's at least 4 or 6 feet wide, if at all possible. I think the original plan was to have it with mulch. And I think if we could make sure that we don't have a lot of rocks and roots and so forth, that a lot of families can use this area. That's my concern. So I'm all for the trail, and I'm all for the dog park.
And hey, Ron, but before we move on from your comment, David, the only reason I brought up the Mcphee Park master plan is because I thought that would be I thought that was necessary to consider any future grants. Do I have that mistaken?
Sue, are you on and can answer that question for Alderman Burnett? If not, if we want to request.
This is Ron. This is Alderman Pinchuk. I might be able to answer that. I think we've already decided to move the dog park once, and that was without talking to anybody as far as a design. It's just because the tennis courts where they worked out would push the dog park out of that area that it was originally planned for. I think if we have a donor, and then we have to design that dog park or whatever it is we have to design. I think we can ask them to help us with where the best place would be for the dog park or whatever else.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we have you, Sue. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I had a problem with my speaker. For the grants, we don't necessarily need another master plan. What I have to have is some kind of site plan for whatever it is that we would want to go for the next grant, which I believe will happen next fall. So, and that would require some money because we can't do that in-house. So it doesn't have to be construction level plans, but it has to be a plan that would be pretty close to what we're going to build. So, and I don't know what that is yet. So.
And Sue, those grants would be from the state of Tennessee, correct?
Right. Those are the local parks and recreation fund, which is combined with the land and water conservation fund. So, so I expect that to happen next fall. That's the normal cycle, and that's the indication we've gotten. That would come out next fall. I would have to have the grant. Usually, I will have to have the grant in early spring of 2022. So. I would just need to have a pretty good idea, and we need to have that in the budget because it has to be shown in the budget.
Thank you, Sue. This is Alderman Meyer. Can I go next?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. So, so first off, I appreciate the generosity of the donor, and I think that a dog park is fantastic. I'm not going to support walking trails, and I'll tell you why. Because we have enough walking trails in the North Ward, in particular in Fox Run and Saddle Ridge, that aren't completed. And so I can't in good conscience support walking trails in Mcphee Park when there are multiple trails already outside of people's homes, right next to their subdivisions that lead to nowhere. And so I would like to make going ahead and completing those already existing walking trails that lead to nowhere. I would like for them to be a priority rather than a walking trail at Mcphee Park. Thanks.
Well, I guess I'm last, Mayor Williams. If there is potential that we could also have a local donor on a dog park as part of some of the funding, it's never the whole thing. And my vision is a four-sided dog park, just like what you do with fields as a farmer. When one field gets eaten down, then you move the livestock to another field and replant. If you look at 90% of the dog parks around, they're loplollies, they're mud pits because the dogs have wore the grass down. And of course, if you keep putting dogs on it and you don't take them off to where you can replant, then that's just the way that it stays. And so people begin to not use it because they're having to try to clean the dog's feet before they put them back in their car because of all the mud, and it becomes a place you really don't want to go. And as far as the trail, a bike trail is something that has really come on strong in recent years, and particularly this year. If you go out to Haw Ridge Park there by the lake and just across the bridge there in Oak Ridge City, or in Oak Ridge, right across from the golf course, just about any time in the afternoons or particularly the weekends, it's just about almost impossible to find a place to even park to unload your bike. But there's people that also walk those trails, not as many people as rides them, but something that would take care of both would be good. Not everybody would want to use that particular trail, but the ones that could, if you're there and your kids are at the splash pad or on the monkey bars or whatever, somebody else may want to walk. Not making it to where somebody could walk it would be a disservice. I think, yes, we do need to connect to the rest of our trails, but I think that's something that really needs to be map and graded. Sue may already have that to where it has been mapped, but we need to grade it as far as the when and if it even can be happen. If it can even happen, some of them that I've looked at, it's extremely tough to connect them. But there's quite a few that could be connected and should be, and but it's something we need to look at and budget for. And to say you want to do that before you do this, I think that would be a little bit short-sighted, because if we have somebody that's going to donate the money and that's what they want to donate it for, and we're going to turn them down because we want to do this other thing as far as connection, then I think that would be a little bit short-sighted on our part.
Then you know what? That's fine. Then I hear what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate it. Then we're going to, I guess, when we start strategic planning in the year for the next fiscal year, we'll just put the uncompleted trails that can most certainly be completed in the North Ward that are not completed as a priority. And I'm not suggesting turn away down any kind of money whatsoever. What I'm saying is it's kind of hard for me to reconcile putting in walking trails and biking trails when we have unconnected trails in the North Ward. So I'll just make that a priority when we have our strategic planning this year. Thank you.
Well, Alderman Meyer, we have them in the South Ward too. I mean, it's not just the North Ward that's got unconnected trails, and probably the one that we see right now is Brookmeyer to Sheffield. I mean, that's the latest one that we could connect. There's plenty of others. I mean, North Ward, South Ward. But again, if there's a chance to put a bike trail, walking trail in the park with a donor, I think we need to embrace that and try to make that work for us. That's all I've got, folks.
And this is David again, just as a couple comments. One is this trail would be unique in that we don't have necessarily a single track dirt type trail. Most of our trails are going to be, greenways that are asphalt, even some mulch trails, or obviously sidewalks that connect to all those different things. And just another aside, next month we'll actually be bidding out the Smith Road sidewalk project to connect up there along Smith Road from Everett Road all the way to Andover. So that'll be a big connection for us that we've been working on for a number of years. And we're looking forward to getting that going to really be able to connect all the way from Saddle Ridge, with the Union Road improvements to come in the future, all the way to Smith Road and all the way to Turkey Creek from there. Well, if I'm hearing the board, the feedback I'm getting is we'll continue to work with the donor and see where that comes out to. I would not anticipate, even if we received any donations, we would work up a sketch, kind of a rough design of where the trails could go. We can work with our contact on that and get that back in the next couple of months. But we would not anticipate doing anything until next fiscal year anyway. So I just want to make sure the board knows it's not happening overnight. We don't have to rush into anything, and we can work through the process to get there. So with that, unless anybody has any other questions, I'll sign off here, and we can get ready for the board meeting at 7. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, David.
Okay, the time is approximately 7 p.m. on December 10th, 2020. Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting will now come to order. Tonight we'll be operating on Governor Lee's current Executive Order number 65, which is an extension of Order 60 as amended by Executive Order 63, which has now been extended by Executive Order 65 and shall remain in effect until 11:59 Central Daylight Time on December the 27th, 2020, which at that time it will expire. In accordance with the executive order, it should be noted that we are operating in compliance with TCA Section 4-5-312D by providing real-time live audio-video access on Charter Channel 193, TDS Channel 3, and is also available on Farragut YouTube channel. Live access to the virtual meeting is made available streaming on www.townoffarragut.org/livestream. It will be recorded and it can be viewed later when posted on the Farragut YouTube channel. During this period of time, all Farragut citizen agenda and forum comments and questions along with their name and address should be mailed to comments@townoffarragut.org and should have been received by 12 p.m. the day prior to the meeting. That is a change in order to be included in the record of the night's meeting. All Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings will be public notice per Tennessee state law. Our board meetings are also in compliance with TCA Section 8-44-103 with public notice of our posted agenda prior to each meeting. Pursuant to Governor Executive Order, all votes taken tonight will be by roll call vote. Per the Executive Order, I ask that each member speaking to please identify themselves to permit the public to ascertain the identity of each person speaking. I'll now ask the town recorder to please take a roll call attendance for a quorum.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer here.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, present.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin here.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams present. Okay, for the record, we also ask that all media representatives please respond as well when requested. I think we probably have someone from the Farragut Press. Not sure about anybody else.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mayor, I'm here. This is Michelle.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, next will be approval of the agenda. Are there any agenda amendments?
No, sir.
None? Okay. Then at that point, I'll ask for a motion to approve the December 10th, 2020 agenda as posted.
This is Vice Mayor Pavlin. I move to approve.
Alderman Meyer second.
Okay, thank you. I'll now ask the town recorder for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that the December 10th, 2020 agenda has been approved, as stated. Approval of minutes, and I ask for a motion to approve the November 12th, 2020 minutes as presented.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, move to approve.
Alderman Meyer second.
Alderman Burnett.
Okay. I'll now ask for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show November 12th, 2020 minutes have been approved. Will be recorded as the official minutes of that meeting. Okay, for the mayor's report, again, I tell you, I'll urge everyone to stay with the physical distancing and face covering when around each other, particularly those with pre-existing conditions. They're the main ones that are having the most trouble. The numbers keep climbing, the deaths keep getting tabulated We, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, we place a very high value on our great staff and our volunteer committee members, as well as our Farragut residents. We are thankful that Governor Lee has extended his executive order for virtual meetings for everyone's safety. I will now yield the floor to Vice Mayor Pavlin for her report.
Thank you, Mayor Williams. I just wanted to shine a bright light on something positive that happened in our community. The Farragut High School Education Foundation recently ran a fundraiser to fundraise for the electives at Farragut High School. They coordinated with Dr. Bartlett to understand what some of the needs were. Dr. Bartlett is trying to expand some of the electives offered to our high school kids. I want to give a shout out to Beth Duncan and Mary Cook, who are serving on the Farragut High School Education Foundation and are doing the hard work that we need to make sure that we're providing for our kids when a lot of funds are falling short of being able to do so. One of the things they just purchased was a baby grand piano for the choral department. Apparently, the piano they were working with was horrid, so horrid that the choir director almost was driven to tears when they started playing the new piano. So a lot of good things happening in our high school, a lot of good things happen in our schools, even under these terrible COVID conditions. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. Let's see if I think we have another alderman has something to report.
Yeah, this is Alderman Pinchot, if I may have some time. I want to share a few issues I have been discussing with David Smoke and Mark Shipley. I have asked David if we could have a study done to assess the viability of optional residential choices for our town. For years, we have heard that people today want more of a variety other than just traditional single-family homes to choose from. And whether it's condos, townhouses, apartments, something like a brownstone, or just different style of single-family homes. We also need to know the effect that these different types of housing and the density will have on our infrastructure. David's going to look into what it might cost to have a study done by an outside service, and hopefully we'll have something to present as a workshop sometime early next year. The second issue, which is related to the first, is to have some discussion points put together on form-based housing, which we can use to create a form-based code. So instead of just looking at density, we can consider form as well when we're looking at different new areas of development. This idea could be something to consider throughout our mixed-use town center as well as other areas within the town. The CLEP, the Comprehensive Land Use Plan Steering Committee, when formed a few years ago, took a tour of the North Shore development. That's where the Target Center is. And the residential part of this project is a combination of single-family homes and condos. Some of these condos are 3 stories high with optional elevators built into them, really unique. And the single-family homes are all very unique in design, construction, and with different styles, materials, and sizes. This project has been very successful and could help us determine form-based guidelines. So Mark and David think they may be able to come up with some discussion points for a workshop again in early January. And the development of a form-based code will be a lengthy process and will probably require an outside service to develop our plans. So again, we need to find out what it's going to cost to do both of these things, and David's going to come up with some estimates. So just looking ahead, by the time our board has its strategic planning meeting in early 2021, we hope to be in a position to look at this in more detail, and if we feel it's necessary to do so, pursue this. So that's all I've got to say. Just want to give everybody an idea of what I've been working on, thinking about, and what I have discussed with David and Mark. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Pinchuk. We look forward to those discussions. Okay, next we have 5 ordinances to review with public hearing tonight, with the first 3 on the second reading. The first will be Ordinance 20-22. It's an ordinance to rezone the property at 933 Mcphee Road from agriculture to open space residential overlay R1/OSR. The 7 acres, Reckley Engineering is applicant. This is on second reading, but I will ask for a motion, please.
I'm going to move to approve.
Alderman Pinchuk, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or any questions for Mark?
I have none.
Okay, Alderman Meyer,
Alderman Meyer, pass.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, pass.
Alderman Pinchuk.
My only question is, are there any changes?
No, there have been no changes since first reading.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor has no questions at all. I was going to ask the same thing that Ron just asked, but with a motion and a second, I'll ask the town recorder for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pavlin,
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer,
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show ordinance 20-22 has been approved on the second reading. Next will be ordinance 20-23, an ordinance to amend the Farragut Municipal Code, Appendix A, zoning, Chapter 4, Section 29, grant opening special events permit. This is to provide for different sign-related provisions. Town of Farragut applicant.
I'm going to move to approve.
Alderman Pinchuk, I'll second.
Okay. Do we, let's see here, is there any other discussion?
Just for clarity, I assume there's no changes from first reading.
Yes, that's correct. This is Mark Shipley. I'm having trouble with my video for some reason not showing up. Maybe that's a good thing for you all. I'm not sure, but there have been no changes.
As long as your audio is good this time, Mark, I think we'll be
hopefully that's good this time. If not, please let me know. But I think Allison and Joe got that taken care of.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Very good.
Okay.
Mayor,
go ahead,
David. I just want to remind everyone that if you're not on video, we do need you to just announce your name before you speak, just for the record. Thank you.
Sorry, but I figured I was the only woman. You would know who I am, but I'll say my name.
Okay. You're up. Do you have any questions?
Did you say me?
Yes.
Alderman Pavlin, I have no questions.
Thank you. Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, I have no questions.
Okay. Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, I pass.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, pass.
Okay, I have no questions as well. With a motion and a second on the floor, town recorder, please take a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer,
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Alderman Pavlin,
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show ordinance 20-23 has been approved on second reading. Next will be ordinance 20-24, an ordinance to amend the Farragut Municipal Code, Chapter 18, Parks and Recreation, prohibits smoking on any children's play areas. And this will also be Town of Farragut applicant. Okay, Mark,
This
is there
is
any
Trevor
changes
Hobbs,
on this?
Assistant to the Town Administrator.
Okay, thank you.
On this second reading, there are no changes, and just for clarity, since there was some discussion on this last time for first reading, the proposed definition of both of the term playground and smoking are based on the state law. Staff would recommend that the board would adopt the state's definitions. And just for clarity, a playground means any indoor or outdoor facility that is intended for recreation of children and owned by the town. And smoking means the burning of tobacco product, hemp product, or any other drug or substance. And smoking does not include the use of vapor product. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and staff would recommend approval on second reading.
Alderman Pavlin, I move to approve.
Alderman Pinchuk, I'll second.
Okay, Okay, thank you. At this point, if we have any more discussion, please state your name and speak up. If not, then we'll move on to a roll call vote for the town recorder, please.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show ordinance 20-24 has been approved on the second reading. Okay, next will be two that are on the first reading. We'll start off with ordinance 20-25, an ordinance to amend Appendix A, zoning, Chapter 3, specific district regulations, Section 12, general commercial district, C1, B, 3, as it relates to outdoor display and or storage of general farm implements and lawn care equipment, riding lawnmowers and related accessories. Farragut Lawn and Tractor is the applicant. Mark?
Yeah, this is Mark Shipley. I'll review this item for you. This relates to the display and storage that apply to general farm implements and lawn care equipment. It's actually a section in the zoning ordinance that's specific to this use. It was actually created for this use many years ago when the building was constructed to replace the older facility to the east. And currently the display is restricted to that area there in the front, the little part that protrudes toward Kingston Pike. And that was designed specifically for the display of the equipment associated with this use. The issue over time has been that the current provisions of the ordinance, which are pretty restrictive on where you can place equipment, have not been followed. In fact, it's resulted in a citation to court. So the owner has petitioned to have that language revisited to give it some more flexibility based on the kind of unique nature of what they do on the property. And so we took this to the Planning Commission originally back in October for a workshop discussion. And the commission was open to adding more flexibility in where the equipment could be displayed. And they had asked the staff to actually meet with the property owner on site, and the mayor joined me as well. And we looked at different options. And ultimately what we ended up proposing that's reflected in the ordinance 20-25 is to require the display of equipment to be only during office hours, and that was a clarification that we've added in this ordinance per a discussion at the Planning Commission meeting in November, and that the display could not come any closer to Kingston Pike than 20 feet from the front property line, and that line would have to be marked by the property owner in consultation with the town staff, because it's not really an established line in the field like a parking lot edge or a building edge. So that's something we would have to coordinate. We know where the property corners are for this property, so it'd be fairly easy to establish where that 20-foot line is, and that's roughly on the screen where it would be situated. So basically all the equipment associated with this use would have to be behind that black line. And again, we would ask them to have that marked so that we could, make sure that they're staying behind the line and they're not having things that kind of encroach closer to Kingston Pike. The logic behind the 20-foot setback is that that's also the same setback for our parking lots. So if you're going to have equipment out in that space, it would be kind of equivalent to cars being parked in a parking lot if you had a parking lot in that location. So that's kind of where that came from. They still would be required to not block the sidewalk. That's also been kind of an issue that that we've had to deal with there. And we're assured that by the property owner that that's not going to happen anymore. And then, of course, the signage was another separate issue from this discussion, and you know, the owner's going to be complying with that as well, and all those things were dealt with the citation. So basically, when this ordinance was presented to the Planning Commission for their recommendation in November, they were receptive to the language. There was a couple of clarifications I mentioned earlier, dealing with only display of equipment and merchandise, and that it would only be displayed during business hours. So, you know, after business, everything would be brought back into the building and would not be visible. So with that amendment, the staff recommends approval on first reading of Ordinance 20-25. It was unanimously recommended for approval by the Planning Commission in November.
This is Alderman Pavlin. I'm going to move to approve.
Alderman Pinchot, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we can start with board discussion. Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, pass.
Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, I'll pass.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, I've got a question for Mark. I understand the 20-foot setback in that line. When I'm reading through all this information, it says that there's a permanent area designed for this use of displaying, and it can't be more than 1,000 square feet. And you've been talking about it, but I don't know exactly where that is. Are we looking at the building? Is it on the east side to the right of the entrance?
Well, and that language was taken out of this new ordinance, but it is this. I don't know if this shows up or not, but it's this area right here. Can you see my cursor? I don't know if y'all can see that or not.
I cannot.
Well, it's basically the little area that kind of protrudes from the front face of the building toward Kingston Pike. That was an area that was specifically constructed to display the equipment. So that's really where the display is supposed to be located only. But it's been kind of scattered about in the front yard for really a while. So we're trying to, you know, through this ordinance, give the owner more flexibility, certainly, but not just have a kind of a free for all either, have some kind of limitation. So that's again where we felt like the 20-foot made sense, because if he were to build a parking lot out there, the parking lot would have to be set back 20 feet, and you'd have cars parked in that physical space in the same area where this equipment in this case would be able to be displayed.
Well, in reading through this general commercial district C1, section 12B1, which is on page 44 of 211 of our material here, I don't see that area, permanent area, in the 1,000 square feet being lined out or.
That's not for this use. The section 3 actually is the section that applies to this specific use.
All right.
That talks about other kinds of uses and the storage opportunities for those. Section 3 deals specifically with the general farm implements and lawn care equipment, because it is it's obviously the only use we have like that in town currently. So it's kind of a unique. All that other language is still in there, but that doesn't relate to this use. That relates to other, you know, where somebody might have storage at another type of use.
I guess my concern was, have we limited them to a certain amount of square footage? And you're telling me we're not. It's just as long as it's beyond the 20-foot setback.
Yeah, in the case of this use, yeah, that's what we're proposing, is that it would be. Currently, the language for this use actually limits really permanent display pretty much to that area, that constructed covered display area. Everything else actually has to be behind the rear plane of the building, which you wouldn't be able to see. And most of that existing equipment is kind of back in that general area. But really the only display currently allowed is in that covered display area. And it, clearly has not been being satisfied, so.
Alderman Pinchot, can I add a little bit to what you're asking? At the planning commission level, our concern was the tractors are large, as you can imagine, and restricting to his display during business hours to that particular area was very restrictive to his type of business. So that's why we added in the language during business hours only, so that when he's displaying, it's during business hours, so it's not sitting out there all the time and he's bringing them in at night, which the business owner has agreed. He did that anyway. We've asked him not to obstruct the sidewalk, obviously. So we just wanted to give him, this particular type of business, a little bit more leeway to display what he needs to display so he can more effectively sell, but certainly keep it restricted to business hours so that it doesn't look like that all the time when he's not there. That was the intent of where we found flexibility and where we found how we can restrict it so it's not like that all the time. And he's really good about lining it up and making it look neat, but he does have times when people need to get on the tractors and test ride them. And so he was very hampered by allowing that to happen under the current, before we offered some changes. That's kind of what the background is.
I appreciate that. I guess my only concern is by having a limited amount of space, this thing won't spread like a cancer. And next thing you know, we got the whole front end of the building during the day with his equipment out there. But as long as staff is okay with it, I'm fine too. I would like to have seen a limited amount of square footage, but I guess the best we can do, then I'll go along with the staff's recommendations.
This is Alderman Burnett. I'll go next. I think my only question, maybe a little different than Alderman Pinchot's, but I like the flexibility this has given him, and I'm glad that we're able to work with the business owner and help them meet their own needs better through adjusting our policies. But my question is, what if there's another building like this on another property that sells some type of farm equipment, and this building is 200 feet back off the line? Does that then give them 200 feet up to the 20-foot setback to where they could display lawn equipment just all over?
Yes, it would. As it's written right now. That's right.
Is there not concerns about that? I mean, to me, when I was talking through this town hall this week, for me, that was a big concern, that a building like this could literally be, 300-400 feet back. And, you go up to Pigeon Forge and Sevierville and you see some places that empty their store out in front of their store and bring it back in, at night. And farm equipment is something you could potentially see there. Did anybody talk through how that could be limited or stopped?
I think we talked about that at the planning commission, understanding that that's 200 feet back is a little bit, that sounds, not many buildings would do that, because it's one thing to have tractors, but in the suburbs, you need street presence as well. So not many business owners are going to set their buildings back so far that they're not seen. I mean, we're taking a risk here, I guess, but we don't have, this is the only business in town so far. And we could what if ourselves all night. Our concern was this business owner is struggling to adequately display what he has, and we wanted to find a solution that would work for him, but would give us, because even if they set it out 200 feet back, they can still have a parking lot set 20 feet back from the front line. So there's nothing stopping them from having that if that's in fact what they're going to do. So I guess this was more of our perspective was this is the issue we're dealing with. I'm not entirely sure we would see a lawn and tractor implement sales closer into town, mostly because they have to have the room to work on the equipment, or to test out the equipment. So that was where our perspective was.
This is Alderman
I hope that
Pinchot again.
helps.
This is Alderman Pinchot again. I guess two things. One, Mark, in C1, is there a possibility that someone could put in a business and put it back 200 feet or 100 feet? Is there some limit on how far that building can be set back on the property?
No, there's a front setback that it has to be behind a minimum front setback and a rear setback. Basically, they have setbacks on all sides of the property.
Got it.
But somebody could, what Alderman Burnett says could happen. I don't probably think it's likely either, but that's a good point. What he makes.
Well, that's what I've been getting at too. And I guess my question is, in the case of this one business, which we want to help, could we come up with a distance between that 20-foot setback in the front of his building and figure out either the distance or the square footage and say, this is what he is allowed, and it would cover that entire front section of his building. That way, if something were to come up down the road, maybe we might have a way of fending this off before it became a problem.
Yeah,
Mayor,
go ahead. Sorry.
We thought about this, Alderman Pinchot and Alderman Burnett. We thought about this. And I'll give you some scenarios. If you had, let's say we had Lowe's move in the town on a piece of property, or it could be Tractor and Supply, or it could be, Home Depot, whatever. And you say that you're going to put the building 200 feet back. If it's a big enough piece of property and you get it 200 feet back, what you'll probably have in those instances, and every one I've ever seen, bar none, is the parking lot in the front. And of course, that would be your 20-foot rule right there, was where the parking lot would be back to the building. And typically, if you look at those type of places, you'll see in the front overhang of those type of buildings, they have their equipment. Most of the time, it's mowers, riding mowers, and they're quite expensive. And they have a cable that runs through those to lock them down to where people just don't hop on them and push them out and load them up and not pay for them. So I think really, if you think of the scenarios that could be with another company that would sell this type of equipment, which Lowe's or Home Depot or Tractor Supply, they keep those up near the front of the building. They don't normally put them out 200 feet away from their building because they'd be a prime target for theft. But I think that right there is kind of what we thought about when we were kind of looking at this as this is very unique. I don't think that even if we had another Farragut Tractor and Supply, lawn Tractor and Supply tractor, they would probably want their building pretty close to the front for what Vice Mayor Povlin says as far as street presence, and we would still have that 20-foot rule like we do on the parking lots. I think that was our real reasoning for going with this, as opposed to trying to figure a hypothetical square footage that would be different on every single application. If it was Lowe's, Home Depot, or Tractor and Supply. And I don't know of any other, unless you had a very similar business to this, that, and then again, I think it would be, they'd want their building closer to the front as opposed to the back. And if it was on the back, they'd have parking in front. So anyway, that's all I've got.
I mean, you could add some language in there that says it has to be, the display merchandise has to be no more than so many feet from the front plane of the building. I mean, you could do that. I mean, in case of this lot, you know, you have to be behind the 20-foot line, but then you also have to be within a certain proximity of the front of the building too, so that you're kind of defining that space between the minimum setback and the building. I mean, you could add that kind of language in there pretty easily if you wanted to, and that would probably somewhat address what Alderman Burnett was talking about, if that ever became an issue. So it's up to you all as to what you want to do there.
I'd feel more comfortable.
We could, what if?
I'm sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I didn't hear that. This is Mark. I didn't hear what that comment was. I apologize.
Well, I was going to ask a question, but I think somebody else was trying to talk, so I was going to yield the floor back to whoever wanted to speak.
No, go ahead, Alderman Meyer. You're up.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So I just want to make sure I understood. So the ordinance is really, the trigger for it is because a business owner came and said that their business was suffering because they were not, or he wasn't given the opportunity to display his equipment in the front of the building. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I think he had been displaying it and probably out of bounds with the language for a while. So what we're trying to do here is to, you know, create a condition of compliance that gives him the opportunity to kind of do what he's more or less been doing, but make it, you know, consistent with the language of the ordinance and tied to some, you know, setback, so that it's not just kind of like it has been and it's kind of scattered randomly across the front and including over the sidewalk, which has been a, you know, obviously a major issue that we can't allow in the future. So
Sure.
that's,
Sure.
I don't know if it's how much it relates
yeah.
to his business, but you know, it's just something that he's requested to allow some more flexibility with how he displays his merchandise in the front area. So that's more or less what it's about.
Alderman Meyer, let me clarify one thing. He had a gator out there that had a big sign that he had printed that was in the gator, and he had it out close to the road. One of the things that we suggested was that he could have a monument sign, and he can also have some signage on his building, and that he needed to kind of look over the VRB's recommendations on that and come up with something that would be suitable instead of having a gator parked out there with a some sort of a sign on the inside of it. So that was one of the other reasons, and it was out on the other side of that 20-foot line.
I see. Okay, thank you. It's helpful. I'm just wondering, you know, because he's got a back parking lot, and you know, I grew up on a farm, and we didn't buy our tractors based on what was put out in front of the building. We knew what we wanted to purchase well before we got into the building. So I guess I'm trying to make sure I understand we're trying to make an exception for business because he used to do this, and now he still wants to do it, and so he's asking for us to compromise. Yet we don't give this privilege to other businesses in the town of Farragut. But I heard a comment earlier that we don't have any. I guess we don't really have any other tractor, agricultural equipment sales businesses in Farragut. But I'm just wondering what happens if there's somebody who is in Lilly, ends up building a building, and they, for whatever reason, because of their business, they want to put a bunch of mattresses out in the front, and they don't want to have the covered porch. So what do we do then? I know we can do the what ifs, but I always appreciate the staff wanting to compromise. I'm just trying to understand why this business person's having a difficult time complying with ordinances that have been around for a while, and why the town has to go back and adjust it for practices of display. So I just
Alderman Meyer, can I help out a little bit? First off, I would say this wasn't the staff's, this was the direction from the Planning Commission. We talked about this and we wanted to find some flexibility for them. It pertains to only tractor and supply, and he doesn't just sell to agricultural. He sells to, right, he has lawnmowers, so he sells to the regular Joe who's looking for a nice big lawnmower. He had been struggling to do what he conduct his business under that that little pavilion there. We thought at the Planning Commission level that was really very restrictive for the type of business that he has. I don't have an issue with adding maybe what the concerns are from Alderman Burnett and Alderman Pinchuk, that you want to keep it in front of the building and not have it all the way out if your building is set back pretty far. I don't have a problem adding whatever that depth is to keep it in front of the building. But we did want to give him some flexibility. It only applies to this particular type of business. It does not apply to any other business. They would have to come and ask for amendments. And the reasoning we used for this was because the size of the equipment is just much larger than anything you would find, like if somebody's doing canoes or something like that. Those things aren't quite as unwieldy as a lawn tractor. So that's what the reasoning was, that it was specific to this type of business, and it doesn't bleed over to other businesses and outdoors displays. So that's why we were comfortable with just the fact that it applied to that business.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
This is Alderman Pinchuk again. I still feel that we need some kind of limit. If you look at section 12B, B1E, which I know it does not pertain to the lawn care and farm implements, but it says in there the total area reserved for outdoor display shall not exceed 2,000 square feet if the net indoor retail floor area is greater than 25,000 square feet, and it shall not exceed 1,000 square feet if the net indoor retail floor area is less than 25,000 square feet. Why couldn't this one sentence be applied to the farm implements and lawn implements? And if 1,000 feet isn't the right number for him, if it's 1,500 square feet, then so be it. But I would like to see some kind of limit. I want to help this business, but I think we need to put a limit on it.
I agree, Alderman Meyer. I agree that there needs to be a limit of some kind.
I don't disagree, but I think a more appropriate limit might be a distance away from the front of the building. What you're describing gets a little bit, I mean, Holly can see the distance from the building, and she could certainly understand that. Going into calculations and trying to figure out what that size looks like for that size building can get a little unwieldy for anyone who's trying to monitor and keep people within their ordinances. I would think a distance from the front of the building would be more appropriate and easier to contend with.
I would like to ask Mark if we could have him go back and talk to the business owner and come up with a square footage or distance or whatever, and amend this with some type of a square footage or distance in the motion.
Ron, you got to be careful what you ask for here, because if you go right next door to the west, there's another can of worms. And then you get into the one down on Campbell Station Road, and other, you've got the one up on Watt Road. When you start singling out distances and square footages of that, then I think that I mean, he would only be fair to ask that it applies to other people that's got something that's got a motor on it and it starts and runs.
Yeah, I think unless you're going to create a physical barrier like a fence or a wall, having a square footage is like Alderman Vice Mayor Pavlin suggested would be a little more challenging to enforce. So I would agree that we probably, if we were going to deal with the proximity to the building, I think we could add some language that the display material has to be, you know, I guess within, I'd have to do some measurements in this case, but so many feet of the front plane of the front of the building, because that's probably where they're going to want to put the display, you know, that faces a public street. It could be on a corner lot. It could be face more than one public street. So that would probably be a little bit easier to enforce, because I did suggest maybe having a barrier established for this use, and that it didn't seem like the Planning Commission wanted to do that. And so that's why we ended up going out there and looking at different options with the owner. And that's where we came up with the 20-foot tied to basically the parking lot setback.
So, Mark, Alderman Meyer, what would be the benefits of a barrier? If you had to summarize.
Well, what I'm talking about is if you had a square footage that you're basically saying they can have, the only really logical way to enforce that is for you have a site plan that basically has a fenced area of the compliant amount of square footage permitted, and basically that material could be within that fenced area. And that was initially what I suggested at the meeting, because that's consistent with language that we have for other uses that have outdoor storage. And I mentioned the Gander Mountain building on Parkside Drive when they were in town, that they had that area that was created for storage and display on the kind of the east side of the building and front of the kind of the south and east side of the building. And that's kind of what I was talking about. That way, you know, it's physically evident where that can be. And then you could also control the requirement for the square footage, because, you know, that you have that physical space designated on an approved site plan, and they basically have to stay within that space. So this was kind of an option that, you know, was an attempt to try to address what was discussed with the Planning Commission, to give them, to not really create a defined physical barrier, but, you know, also not really have kind of a free-for-all like we've had in the past there.
Yeah, I've seen the free-for-all driven by it multiple times.
Yeah, so that's kind of what this is. It's kind of a...
I think the barrier makes sense. Okay.
I mean, it could be like an open fence to where you could still see the material, but it would just basically define, you know, the limits of where the display could occur. So that was just something we talked about. But again, it...
Then you're talking
Mayor
about,
Williams.
he's got the sidewalk there, he's got the fence, you're making him invest in a fence. We're getting into very business unfriendly territory, when the issue you're concerned about is that you don't want in the future the possibility of having a building set back 200 feet with tractors in the front. If we can put a distance, be business friendly, give them a distance so that you're taking care of the possibilities in the future and allowing him to exercise some freedoms. I think you're answering we're overcomplicating it when we start forcing them to put in fences, and what does that do with the sidewalk, and where do you put the gates, and it becomes complicated from a business owner's perspective.
Mayor Williams, one of the reasons we didn't think a fence was very appropriate in the front there is because that's the only grass he's got. And when you demo a mower, what do? Somebody tell me what we do with a mower when you
We
demo
mow
it.
it. Last time I didn't pay for my yard to be mowed, but
Yeah.
It's mowing the grass, and
Yeah.
that's what that section for there.
that makes sense. I just, I just feel like we have provisions for businesses to have displays already in this ordinance, and we're making an exception for business. I don't think me wanting us to be consistent with other businesses like Gander Mountain makes me unbusiness friendly. I think Mayor Williams, you kind of hit the nail on the head for me. Is he's got to have some grass to mow, I guess, to demonstrate his equipment. So, okay, thank you.
This is Alderman Burnett. I agree with making the adjustments for this business owner, and then I like the idea that Vice Mayor Pavlin brought up about just creating a limit, maybe not square footage, but distance from the front of the building. I think that would protect the business that's 50 feet back, 100 feet back, not even 200, but just 50 or 100. If we could put something in to protect that, I think that would be wise.
This is Alderman Pinchot again. I'm against the fence. I don't like that idea. I like what Alderman Pavlin is saying too. If we could come up with some restriction, Mark, can you do that for us?
Yeah, that should be pretty easy to do. Yeah, I'll just add some language in there that it has to be within so many feet of the, like I said, the front plane of the building. And then still obviously have to be set back behind the 20-foot line, so it'd be kind of defined between that front plane up out to a certain point and then 20 feet back. So yeah, I could put something together on that.
Mayor Williams,
So are we, go ahead.
Make sure that you also think about a corner lot, because we didn't touch on that, but just a word or two, and I think
exactly
that should
right.
be something.
Yep.
You also need to, I see what everybody's saying, and let's make sure that we think about a corner lot as well, because
a corner lot would be the front plane too, because on a corner lot you have two fronts basically. So that same distance that the display has to be to the building would apply to both streets. So
I'm saying you could have a wraparound. That's what I'm getting at.
Yes, you could. That's right.
Okay, so let me ask you this, since we've already had a motion a second, are we going to delay this vote? What's the process for that, David?
Well, I was going to make the suggestion, this is David Smoke, that if the board's comfortable going ahead and voting for this on first reading, at least it gets it to second reading. That gives Mark and myself a chance to talk through this a little bit more and get you some amended language heading into second reading that will be more accurate and what everyone has reflected they would like to see. I think we certainly need to get it corrected, as I know the business owner is trying to comply with whatever we come up with here in the ordinance process. So if you're comfortable with that, we can. If you'd rather postpone it and wait for another first reading, we can do that as well. But I think we can accomplish the same thing between now and second reading.
Okay, so do I need to make an amended motion saying with the proposed amended language to be added?
You can.
Okay.
To deal with the front setback of the building, you could certainly say something like that.
Okay, I'm going to make an amended motion to approve, what is this ordinance? I forget.
2025.
2025 with an additional setback from the front of the building for the equipment to be displayed.
Okay, we'll need a roll call vote on the amendment.
I'll second that.
All right, for the amendment, Alderman Pinchot.
Yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Yeah, Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes, and we will need a roll call vote on the ordinance.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, yes.
Alderman Pavlin,
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer,
Alderman Meyer, no.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that ordinance 2025 has been approved on the first reading with a future amendment pending on second reading. Thank you. Okay, next will be ordinance 20-26, an ordinance amending the general fund and capital investment program for the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget, passed by ordinance 20-07.
Yes, sir. The general fund budget will be amended with an increase of $74,831, and this is for personnel. The next one is capital investment program, and the increase in the expenditures is 1.1 million to 1.277 million, an increase of 177,000. Also, we have an increase in revenues. We did get some monies back from our Watt Road extension to Old Stage Road, and that was $167,000. So the motion is to approve ordinance 20-26 on first reading.
This is
Okay.
Alderman Pavlin, move to approve.
Alderman Pinchuk, I'll second.
Okay. We'll start out with discussion with Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, I pass.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, I pass.
Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, I pass.
Mayor Williams will pass, and we'll let Alderman Meyer be last on this one.
Oh, gee, thanks. Because I'm the numbers person. Alderman Meyer passed.
Okay. That was the reason I let you be last. I will ask the town recorder now for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pavlin,
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett,
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer,
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that ordinance 20-07 has been amended by ordinance 20-26. Unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay, next we'll move on to business items. Tonight we have 8 of those on the agenda. We'll start off with approval of the 2020-2021 snow removal schedule and road additions.
Yes, Mayor, this is David Smoke. Each year, we have all of our snow removal policy that we give to the board. We like to look at these as kind of a first stage, second stage approach. First stage on your screen is everything in red. Second stage is everything in blue. We do add streets as we have them included and added to our street network. This year we have some secondary roads that are added in both the Brass Lantern subdivision as well as Brookmere. Certainly as those developments, especially Brookmere, continue to develop out, we'll add some more next year, I'm sure. But those are the only changes we have this year from last, and with that, staff would recommend approval.
This is Alderman Pavlin. I'm going to move to approve.
Alderman Pinchuk, I'll second.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to discussion, and we'll start off with Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, pass.
Pass. Okay, Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, I pass.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, I pass.
Okay, Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, I pass.
And Mayor Williams has one suggestion on Brookmere. We need to let the, and this goes for any development that's under development. We need to let them know that they need to make sure that their worker bees keep their vehicles out of the road so that we can plow. That particular subdivision, they tend to park willy-nilly and block the road. And if it's where we have to plow, it's kind of tough for a plow that's plowing to back up, particularly if he's going up the hill. And if there's a vehicle in the way. Other than that, that's all I've got. Okay, I'll now let the county recorder please take a roll call vote.
Alderman Burnett.
Hey, Allison, did you say Alderman Burnett?
I did.
That's a yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that the schedule's been approved as requested. Next will be approval of the utility make-ready work agreements for development of the town advanced traffic management systems. That would be the ATMS Phase 1 project.
Yes, good evening, everyone. This is Daryl. Merry Christmas, by the way. I'm trying to show off my Christmas tree behind me here. The next three items on your agenda have to do with our Advanced Traffic Management System Phase 1 project. It's kind of a mouthful, so we just call it our ATMS project. This project includes installation of a central control for all of our 26 signals throughout the town at the town hall. It also includes new controllers, radar detection for all approaches, and fiber optic lines for communication between all the signals in the town hall. This project is CMAQ funded, that's Congestion Mitigation Air Quality funding through the TPO. It is almost 100% reimbursable with the exception of ADA compliance items. But for the most part, our project budget is $7,020,000, so it's a pretty big project. This item here is approval of utility make-ready work agreements. What is a make-ready agreement? I'll get to that. Allison, if you will pull up that map that was included in the board's packet. There it is. I mentioned the fiber optic lines that will be installed as part of this project. Everything in green there, Campbell Station Road and Parkside Drive, those corridors, fiber optic lines will be underground in conduit. But all along the Kingston Pike corridor, everything will be overhead on existing and in some cases new utility poles. In order to make room for our lines to make ready the site, thus the name of these agreements, make ready for our work, all of the utilities that are already on the poles have got to be adjusted. In your packets, there was an agreement from each of 5 different utilities for their make-ready work. Now, these agreements provide a schedule as well as a basic scope of services and an estimated cost. In this case, for CMAQ funding, the movement of these utilities, the adjustments, are fully reimbursable. We will pay these utilities to move out of our way, and then we will be reimbursed in CMAQ dollars. The 5 agreements are from AT&T, Charter Communications, LCUB, TDS Telecom, and Windstream Communications. All 5 of those total and have an estimated cost of $139,205.81. Staff recommends approval of the utility make-ready work agreements for the ATMS Phase 1 project as presented, with costs totaling $139,205.81.
This is Alderman Pavlin. I'm going to move to approve.
Alderman Pinchuk, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we'll start with Alderman Meyer on discussion.
Alderman Meyer, pass.
Okay, Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Daryl, I have a real quick question for you, because you had mentioned ADA. Is that, I know that this is a CMAQ funded project. Is the ADA portion of this included in this budget?
Yes, it is, but Tdot is requiring that all jurisdictions, when we have a CMAQ project, like a signal project like this, which is typically 100% reimbursable, we have to make adjustments, ADA compliance adjustments. In this case, it'll be a lot of curb ramps. But we have got to pay 20% of the total on those line items.
Oh, I didn't realize. So they're paying 80% of ADA, but they're paying 100% of the ATMS.
That's correct.
Okay, that's great news. That
It's
helps us out a lot. We're chugging along on our ADA stuff. That's great.
We try.
Okay.
That's all I had. I'm sorry.
Okay. Maybe Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, I don't have, I'm happy about this. I'm excited about this system coming in. I don't have a whole lot to add there. I do hope at a workshop in the near future that we can discuss changes that we can make to timings in the red lights in Farragut. I think it's very much over needed. And I know this isn't the perfect place to talk about it, but it is to deal with traffic signals. So I'm in support of this. I'm excited about the system coming, but even way far ahead of that ever getting here, I hope in the near future we can talk about making some adjustments to accommodate the current traffic situation.
Okay, have I covered everybody?
You missed me, Alderman Pinchot.
Oh, sorry about that.
I have to agree with Drew. I think we definitely, as we get closer to implementation, we need to discuss our traffic situation. But otherwise, I'm fine with the agreement. So no further questions.
Okay, thank you. I think Daryl is aware that once we have this in place, that we can kind of see what we can do to help matters. And the good thing about it is, I think, Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, that we can do alternate programs for different times of day with this.
Oh, that's correct. I mean, we have alternate programs right now for different times. But this will provide a little more flexibility. And for that matter, anytime something is breaking down, when there are major issues, we'll get an alert on it. And we'll be able to, hopefully, be able to respond and try to move things along a little better.
Okay, great. Okay, with that, I would like for the town recorder to please have a roll call vote.
Alderman Meyer. Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that the agreement has been approved as requested. Okay, next will be part two, approval of the pole attachment agreement, the LCUB, for the town's ATMS project, phase 1 project.
We were discussing the need to install our fiber optic lines on LCUB's poles. That does require an agreement with LCUB since we are being installed on their poles. This is an agreement that between the town and LCUB that kind of outlines our agreement with them and shows an annual fee currently at $4,342.48. When we started discussing this with LCUB, they wanted to look into, or we asked them to look into waiving that fee, but unfortunately, that is a TVA requirement for the annual fee. So we're okay with it. Staff recommendation is approval of the LCUB pole attachment agreement for the ATMS Phase 1 project.
Alderman Pavlin, move to approve.
Alderman Burnett, second.
Okay, Okay, we'll start with Alderman Burnett as far as discussion.
Alderman Burnett, pass.
Okay, Alderman Pinchot.
This Alderman Pinchot, I have a problem with it. On page 2, it states that the parties understand and agree that the TVA is LCUB's regulator and may determine a different rate if a different rate is appropriate. All my years in negotiating leases with the company I was with, you never left a lease open-ended like this. It was always, you know, if we couldn't come to an agreement long-term or even short-term segments, 5-10 years, that we always would put a 2.5% or 3% or CPI type of increase as a max, no more than 5%. And I would like to see some language in here. I know we're dealing with TVA, but I don't want to leave it open-ended. I think we should put something in there to something like 2.5%, 3% max per year if they're going to increase it, no more than 2.5 to 3%. And if they send it back and they don't agree with that, then go as high as 5%. But I think this has got to be negotiable. I can't believe we have to leave it unended because this is a long-term lease and no telling what might happen down the road.
Alderman Pinchot, I can certainly appreciate your concerns. The fact is, this is regulated by Tennessee Valley Authority. I imagine they will probably look at it, to put it bluntly, as they take it or leave it. They do regulate this. Everybody that is on the LCUB polls is paying the same rate. They do try to keep that pretty well managed. I will say that Lenore City is paying this rate to mount on their own poles. So unfortunately, it's something we're left with. Yes, it is kind of open-ended, but I do know that TVA will try to keep things at a reasonable level.
Okay.
Have we tried to talk to TVA ourselves? Have we any communication with them or just through LCUB?
No, but just our conversations with LCUB, that's pretty much where we are.
I feel really uncomfortable about this, but I'd like to hear, anybody else have anything to say?
Let's move on then to Alderman Meyer.
I echo Alderman Pinchot's comments. I don't like open-ended agreements. On the other hand, I've never done a contract with TVA, so I don't think it hurts to ask, just for due diligence purposes. You know, if the agreements I come up with typically are, here's the rate, it stays that way, and if we need to adjust the rate, then we can enter to a new agreement or amend it or something. But I would like to maybe approach TVA and see if there's a way to limit or to cap the growth.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Meyer. Vice Mayor Pavlin.
I was thinking the same thing, that there was no restriction on that. I think it gives a new complexity when LCUB is paying to mount stuff on their own poles. It makes me realize I think it's highly doubtful that TVA is going to want to address this. This is probably a standard contract for them. So I'm certainly open to, I can't hurt to ask, but I don't want us to not pass this and hold this project up. I don't know if by not passing this, are we holding this up, Daryl?
Brian Haas with Cannon & Cannon is here. Brian, are you still on the line?
Brian Haas with Cannon & Cannon. Yes, I'm here.
Brian, would you like to weigh in on this?
Sure. So this general attachment agreement is required to be in place before the town physically attaches fiber to LCUB poles. It does not have to be in place from a Tdot perspective for us to get a notice to proceed to construction phase. So from that point of view, we have a little more time here, because I would anticipate construction starting, going through the bid phase and getting construction funding obligated. Construction is probably not going to start until summer of 2021.
Okay, thank you. I guess really the only thing I've got is I'm aware of the lease agreement type thing that TVA does. It applies to everybody. I think it is a take it or leave it. The only thing that I would really think would be polite about it is if they could give us a notification so we can budget accordingly. That's all I have.
I think we have a couple questions. One, what the mayor just said, and then also it's worth going back and at least asking. I would suggest we do that.
Could I ring in here just a second, please? This is Tom Hale.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead, Tom.
I've spent about 4 months, if not longer, Daryl knows better than I do, trying to convince LCUB that because they're using our right of way and they're not paying us to put their poles in our right of way, that they ought to let us put our lines on their pole without charge. I thought that was a pretty reasonable approach to them. However, what I learned in that process was that they were not permitted to waive those fees because TVA regulates the entire system and everybody has to handle it the way TVA says. And I wasn't convinced of that for the longest time, but they finally convinced me because I couldn't get an answer out of anybody. And I finally, felt like I was holding up the project because we couldn't get an answer. Well, we finally got an answer, and they said that regulatory wise, they cannot modify the rates for anybody that is on the pole. Everybody has to be charged the same thing. And this reminds me of frequently what we deal with when we try to negotiate contracts with the state of Tennessee. There are lots of provisions in the contracts with the state of Tennessee that your town attorney doesn't like, but your town attorney can't get the state of Tennessee to modify their agreements. That's their agreement, and by golly, that's going to be their agreement. So we frequently raise issues with these governmental entities that we have to deal with about things like this, and we generally get the same kind of response that every now and then we give to people who are contracting with the town of Farragut. This is the way we do it, and this is the contract we use, and we can't deviate from that. So, I mean, I'm happy to go back and get a feel for how often they raise these rates, whether they can, charge different people different rates. But I think the reality is if everybody's got to pay the same thing, then I think the protection is that they've got to be mindful that if they just jack the price up 20% on everybody that's using their pole, they better have a really pretty good reason, or else there's going to be an uprising.
I would add that this is really just a maintenance fund for maintenance of all the poles in the network. It's not like they're trying to turn a profit on it.
Yeah, they'd have to justify from a cost basis why they were increasing the rate. It's not like they're making money off of this.
Well, that was my only concern, is the protection for the town down the road. Would it be 10, 15, when our board is gone, and who knows down the road what might happen. So I was just looking for protection. But if you feel it's there because there's so many other people involved in businesses, then maybe we have to live with it.
I would suspect that it is throughout the TVA region, probably the same rate.
I'm going to agree with Alderman. This is Alderman Pavlin. I'm going to agree with Alderman Pinchot's assessment. Yes, we would like some assurances. No, I don't think we're going to get them. And I don't think there's a need to delay this. We'll be back here talking about this a month from now, saying no, I'm ready to move forward with this.
I want to thank Tom for that information. Appreciate your feedback.
No problem.
I echo that.
It was pretty frustrating, I'll tell you that.
I'm sure.
Mayor Williams, I think we're ready for a vote.
Yes, we are. I'm sorry, I was muted, and ask the town recorder for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, reluctantly, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes, and Alderman Pinchot, you know that'll make the papers, don't you? Okay, let the record show the agreement has been approved as requested. Okay, next will be approval of proposal from the WSP USA Inc. for construction, engineering, inspection, CEI services for the town's ATMS Phase 1 project.
I'm sure you can imagine this is a pretty high-tech project. Town staff does not have the expertise to be able to provide proper engineering and inspection services for the project. Also, since it does have CMEC funding, it is required to follow local programs development guidelines. So we do need a CEI consultant on this. We went through the RFQ process. That's a request for qualifications, asking engineering firms to submit qualifications so that we could make a selection based on those qualifications and then request a proposal. That is what we did. WSP USA provided the best qualifications in our opinion, so we requested a proposal from them. WSP is it's a very large engineering conglomerate, I guess, with a local presence now. They provided a proposal. We liked the scope of work that they outlined. That is in your packet. It comes with a fee of $819,318. We'll say that that's a pretty large fee, but that is in keeping with our budget. It has been budgeted and it is 100% reimbursable. So staff recommends approval of CEI services agreement for ATMS Phase 1 project with WSP USA Incorporated with total fee of $819,318.
This is Alderman Pavlin. I'll move to approve.
Alderman Burnett, I'll second.
Okay, I'll start off the discussion on this. This is sitting on the PPO executive board. This is very typical dollar-wise for this type of a service. This is not really unusual at all. It is very complicated and it is required. So my suggestion is that we approve this as well. And I'll move on to Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, I have nothing.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, pass.
Okay, Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, pass.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, I pass.
Okay. Now I ask for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show the proposal has been approved as requested. Okay, next will be approval of Tdot agreement for development of Jamestown Boulevard traffic study.
I'm sure everyone is familiar with the Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road intersection. If you go through there during peak hours, you can see traffic backed up. It's a low level of service. One of the more difficult movements is the eastbound Kingston Pike movement turning left onto northbound Campbell Station Road. Sometimes that left turn queue can back up several hundred feet, and it takes several signal cycles to get through the intersection. With development on all four quadrants of that intersection, adding a second left turn lane would be pretty difficult, or at least very expensive. So we're looking at other solutions. In this case, we're looking at the possibility of, well, we want to know what it would take to make Jamestown Boulevard a bypass of the Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road intersection for that movement. In my mind, I can see likely a signal at each end of Jamestown Boulevard that's on Kingston Pike and at Campbell Station Road, some realignment of the lanes, and well, this is a traffic study to determine first, is it feasible? Is it something that's going to have a good effect? Basically, is it justified? And if it is, what's going to be required of it? Now, this study is funded with LSTBG dollars, that is local and surface transportation block grant money through the TPO. It has an 80-20 split, of which the town is required to pay 20%. We have an $80,000 budget, and the town would be responsible for $16,000. So staff recommends approval of the Tdot agreement for development of the Jamestown Boulevard traffic study.
I'm going to move to approve. This is Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Burnett, I'll second.
Okay, then Alderman Burnett, we'll start off with you on questions or discussion.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. I mean, anybody that lives in Farragut and travels this during school hours knows that this is the greatest cut through in the world. And so I'm very anxious to hear what the study comes back with, because there's a big part of me that thinks adding 2 more lights in that congested area would hurt, but having this study done will tell us pretty definitively. So I'm excited to hear the results.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Meyer?
I'm Alderman Meyer. I support the study. I'm looking forward to the information it provides.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Pinchuk?
I agree. I support this study as well.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pavlin?
I support this study, but I want to give you guys a heads up about where I'm thinking. My concern is certainly connectivity. I'm a big believer in connectivity everywhere. It helps mitigate traffic issues, and we should always be seeking those out. And of course, the town has done a great job of that over the years, connecting Campbell Station Road. They connected Turkey Creek Road to Virtue Road. They connected Old Stage and Watt Road. So that connectivity is what helps our community absorb the increased traffic that we're seeing that's coming from around us. My concern with this particular one is Jamestown Boulevard is a village green. A lot of people will come out of Village Green on that area, walkers or kids on bikes to get over to the Village Green Shopping Center. So in creating some more traffic there, I really don't want it to turn into a speedway. So I want us to be conscientious that that portion is really treated like a street. And we need to look at opportunities for how we're going to maintain lower speeds, so that we're not we just don't have another raceway, because we don't that's a lowering of quality of life of the folks that are in Village Green over there. So that's my only concern, and obviously I'm getting way ahead of myself by saying that, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that that's kind of where I'm thinking if this comes to pass.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Pavlin. Okay, with me, I think with two signals, really at first blush, it would seem to help stacking in both directions. I think it would actually help Daryl as far as being able to see stacking at certain times and to stage those lights to where it will help. I don't know how much people will use that as a cut through, but I do think that, and if they do, then of course, as Vice Mayor said, we'll need to look at it. There's no real way to start to try to do something until you see that that it become a problem. I don't think it will be. I think certainly we will do need a crosswalk over there, but I think really the biggest thing that we'll do is help stacking in both directions and being able to actually stage those lights to where you flush one before you fill it up again. So that's all I've got.
May I?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. This is Alderman Paul, and I have one more thing to add to you because I'm not sure that everyone's aware of this. Farragut Middle School currently, the Faith Lutheran is their emergency. Last I talked to Wes Edmonds, Faith Lutheran is their emergency place where they're supposed to go. And of course, they've never practiced that drill because there's no safe way to get across Campbell Station Road from the high school. So understanding that that is also going to be an emergency place for Farragut Middle School to go to, the students to go to, having a light there would be tremendously helpful in case of an emergency. Of course, I don't envision that happening, but that's what emergency planning is for.
Hence the crosswalk.
I would also add that in the future, the Ford property to the south and the Craig Allen property to the east on the east side of Campbell Station, both of those will likely need signals. So this would be looking at something that, well, there's going to be a signal there most likely anyway. Just my thought.
Okay, thanks. I guess I'll ask for a roll call vote then.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer. Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that the agreement has been approved as requested. Okay, next will be approval of bids and award of contract 2021-07, stormwater infrastructure repairs.
You'll recall last year that we had to replace 3 separate pipes in the town after major storms that were having problems. There were not cataclysmic failures, but they were approaching that point. We had to replace those 3 pipes under an emergency contract, fairly expensive endeavor. The board has directed us to look at all of our pipes, particularly the ones that we know have issues. There is a total of 17 locations that we are aware of where pipes need to be either replaced, stormwater pipes either need to be replaced or lined. The board approved a budget last year to allow for the pipe repairs. It was more or less an arbitrary number. It was a large number, but it was arbitrary. We weren't sure how much it was going to cost to make these repairs. We worked with CEC Incorporated as our design engineer to come up with a contract and plans to make all the repairs that we had. We put that project out on the street for bids, and we received bids on November 20th from 2 different companies who do this kind of work. The project will include repairs for cured in place pipe lining as well as pipe replacements. The problem is that the bids that we received on November 20th were quite a bit higher than the budget we had. So we worked with CEC to try to remove some of the locations. By removing 3 of the 17 locations out of the project, we could come up with an adjusted bid that is presented tonight. If we adjust those according to the 14 locations we're talking about, that would be Gulf Coast Underground LLC, it's $723,600.76. And Morgan Contracting Incorporated at $869,815 even. The tabulations were in your packet for your review, and staff recommends approval of bids and award of contract 2021-07 to Gulf Coast Underground LLC for their low bid of $723,600.76.
This is Alderman Pavlin. I'm going to move to approve.
Alderman Meyer, second.
Mayor, are you on mute?
Sorry about that. Alderman Meyer, we'll start out with you on discussion then.
I support 100% replacing the pipes. That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, pass.
Okay, Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, pass.
And Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, certainly happy to see this project finally moving along. I will remind the board that we still need to do mapping and inspections, and we will need to, this is going to turn into a fund much like our road maintenance fund, where we're just going to have to continue to put in some money from year to year to make sure that we're taking care of and get these on a priority list and handle them like we do our roads, where we look at them and make sure on an annual basis, okay, how do these look? So just giving you guys a heads up that I think we're moving into maintenance with our stormwater infrastructure, which I'm thrilled to see, because it is something that we've needed to deal with.
Okay, thank you. I agree. I think Darrell is all about making sure that we continue to map and grade our worst offenders, and I think some of these I've looked at, and they're definitely need to be on the list. So with that, we have a motion with a second on the floor. I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show awarding of the bid has been approved for contract 2021-07. Next will be approval of bids and award of contract 2021-08, Watt Road pedestrian crossing.
Darrell, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, guys. Just now caught that. Thank you. A couple of years ago, we received a request for installation of sidewalk and a crossing on Watt Road. Sidewalk would connect Orchid Grove subdivision and Sedgefield subdivision on the east side of Watt Road to Mayor Bob Leonard Park. This project includes about 700 feet of sidewalk, along with a pedestrian refuge island and flashing beacons, very much like what we have on Grigsby Chapel Road. One feature it does have that Grigsby Chapel does not is a mast arm pole to place the beacons higher for southbound movement on Watt Road. We received 4 bids on November 12th. Adams Contracting LLC bid $296,875. APAC Atlantic bid $315,329. Southern Constructors bid $258,837, and Whaley Construction LLC bid $238,317. This is very much along the lines with the bids we'd received back earlier in the year when we combined this with the Grigsby Chapel crossing. We did reject those bids at that time just simply because we didn't have the money in the budget to do that. We've made adjustments. So staff recommends approval of the bids and award of contract 2021-08 to Whaley Construction LLC for their low bid of $238,317.
This is Alderman Pavlin, so moved.
Alderman Meyer, second.
Okay, Alderman Meyer, we'll start off with you.
Okay. I think that we need to get the pedestrian crossing in place, and I support it. And that's all.
Great, thank you. Vice Mayor Pavlin?
I concur with Alderman Meyer. This was motivated by a residential request. They came out and were really very interested in seeing this. They'd like to be able to access the park, and they do not feel safe being able to cross Watt Road. And of course, Watt Road is seeing more traffic now than it ever has. So I'm in support of this project.
Okay, Alderman Pinchot?
Yeah, I totally support this project as well. It's needed, and I'm looking forward to it getting underway.
Okay, Alderman Burnett.
Yeah, I guess I'll be a little bit of the lone dissenter here. I like the idea of trying to get neighborhoods safely across Watt Road into our park. I think the way this is drawn up is less than ideal. I think that is a very, very dangerous spot for a crosswalk. It's a blind hill where people absolutely fly, and as traffic increases, I think it's going to be even worse. You know, I don't like the idea of a mast arm over one side. I think it's a little bit of an eyesore, and I think it's a whole lot for that area to have that added. It's just me here, but I would even be in favor of flipping the sidewalk and having it going south where an entrance to the park where the road is crossing there. I know the train slopes down a little bit, but I'm absolutely not in favor of crossing at one of the most dangerous spots on a road that's traveled at very, very high speed. So again, I want to get those neighborhoods safe access to the park. I just don't think that's a good spot to do it.
Daryl, can you address the line of sight issues and why they placed it there?
I don't know if Ryan Haas is still on the line, but I think he may have been involved with this from Cannon. As far as the line of sight goes, there is a little bit of a hill there for southbound movement. That was the reasoning for trying to get the beacons up higher above the lane on the mast arm for the southbound movement. For northbound, there's plenty of sight distance to see the beacons. They'll be very much like they are at Grigsby Chapel Road, just off to the side. So we do feel like this will provide plenty of warning in both directions for motorists.
Yeah, for going northbound, it'll have obviously plenty of line of sight. If it were moved to the south entrance of the park, you would have plenty line of sight from both ways without a mast arm, just with the lights on the side of the road. I just think the higher up you move that's why you have to have a mast arm very high, because southbound traffic is flying over a blind hill. And I just don't think it's an ideal place for a crosswalk, even with a flashing light that we know initially it's an immediate people will brake, but over time they're just used to seeing a mass arm, and I'm afraid it won't curtail the speed with a family walking with 3 kids across that road.
Okay.
Drew, I'll add a little bit to this, because I don't disagree with you that there probably isn't much, there isn't an ideal location, but people do cross there, whether we are supporting it or not. there's a topography issue with getting a sidewalk in all the way down on that side to the south entrance. And if people want to cross to access the fields or the playground, they're not going to walk all the way down to the south entrance. That's the issue we have with the crosswalk that's on Grigsby Chapel. They're not going to walk all the way up to the intersection to cross at the intersection. They're going to cross there whether there's a crosswalk or not. So a lot of times when you're putting in mid-block crosswalk, it's not because that's where you really want it to be. It's where they're actually crossing. So they're crossing in that area already. I'm relying on the engineer to make sure that they've put it in the best line of sight for how people are actually acting now.
This is Alderman Pinchuk. I've got a question for Daryl. On Grigsby Chapel, as you're approaching the St. John Newman Church and school area, there's a flashing sign on the side of the road when cars are trying to exit onto Grigsby Chapel. How expensive is something like that? And if needed down the road, could we add something like that on the southbound lane, that there is traffic or pedestrians trying to cross ahead? Is that possible?
That's actually what the pedestrian flashers are doing, is warning folks that there are pedestrians crossing up ahead.
So you're talking about the overhead arm?
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
So this is Alderman Meyer. I share Alderman Burnett's concern about the speed on that road, the vehicle speed. And so I will make a comment, and I'm very late in giving this thank you to the town staff, but the speed sign that was put on Everett Road that flashes someone's speed as they drive and come upon it, I think has made a big impact, because I see people, for the most part, braking when they see that sign, when they realize that their speed is much higher than what the limit is. And I would definitely support the possibility of putting a sign similar to the one that's on Everett Road on Watt Road, just to bring to people's attention that they are driving pretty fast on one of them. I'll confess that. So I would prefer that kind of sign over some other flashing pedestrian signs, simply because they're already going to be there in the mast.
Okay, thank you. I have to agree with Alderman Meyer on that. I've actually had phone calls complimenting that, as far as people actually thanking the walkers, thanking us for doing that, because they feel that it has also worked, because they also see the brake check. I think that really kind of gives people an eye opener. As far as the location of this one, when we had the steering committee, this was something that was a #1 priority on this corridor right here. And as far as we looked at a lot of different things about it, and this is one of the big things that come up. And initially they were talking about putting it up high, but bringing it down this far meant that we had 750 feet of sidewalk to get it down this far. And we talked about some of the others, about where they cross down at the bottom, and they actually use the crossing there by the fire department, so, which is very close to the south entrance. But one of these days, whenever this all develops and we do a road improvement, whenever the developers start finding out that this is going to be a corridor that they want to start working on, and we do a road improvement, I'd like to see a roundabout at the south entrance. I think that would be a speed deterrent. And once people have, like Daryl said, they'll see the signs. The big thing that everybody asks for, and I think this is really important, is that you have a staging area right in the center. So when people cross, okay, people that's headed north, there's plenty of line of sight as far as the people crossing. And if they cross halfway, then they're going to stand there and wait until there's nothing coming that's headed south. And You know, if it didn't have that, then I'd be real apprehensive about this whole project. But because it does have that staging area right there in the center, I think that's real important on something like this working properly. That's all I've got. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll ask the town recorder for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, no.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Okay. Let the record show that contract 2021-08 has been approved as requested. Okay, one more. Next will be the approval of the updated human resources policies and procedure manual.
Good evening. It's Janet Curry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. The Human Resources Policies and Procedure Manual establishes and provides normal, orderly, and uniform policies and procedures for employees in the service of the town. It was last updated in 2017, and since then there's been Department of Labor changes in the overtime rules, and technology has changed a lot. Townwide consistency and documentation are critical for good HR management. Therefore, this update clears up several areas of practice that is currently not documented in our policies, and we updated the overtime calculation. You received the new policies and the updated policies in your packet, and they were in red font. It's getting late, and so I'm going to run through the 6 policy changes or new policies really quickly and explain why we're doing what we're doing. The internship policy. Occasionally, the town has requests by students asking to do an internship. Over the years, we've had many types of interns without expectations in writing. To limit our liability, the new policy states expectations of both the student and the department head who agrees to the internship. 2, non-exempt employees' electronic communications outside of work hours. Non-exempt employees are hourly paid employees. At various times, non-exempt employees may be requested by their department head to check emails or answer phone calls outside of normal work hours. This time is compensable and will be paid at their overtime rate. On the other hand, if an employee takes it upon themselves to catch up on a project over the weekend and does not obtain department head approval in advance, the time is deemed as non-compensable. This policy does not apply to our exempt employees. Here we are trying to control overtime. Leaves of absence. The town is aware of special problems of a personal nature that may prompt employees to request a leave of absence. The town will also consider a request for medical leave of absence when the employee is not eligible for FMLA leave, or an extension of medical leave where the employee has exhausted FMLA leave as a request for a reasonable accommodation under the ADAA. All requests for accommodations, whether for an initial or extended medical leave or for working conditions accommodations, must be directed to me. Occasionally, this type of leave may be without pay. We had no policies to address this. When this leave of absence is requested and the employee has exhausted all their sick and annual leave, therefore a policy like this does detail how it will be applied. Number 5, suspension from work without pay. Suspension from work without pay is mentioned in the disciplinary policy as an option. Yet there has been no policy detailing how the suspension will be addressed, and that it may be used for an employee investigation for poor conduct. And when I say poor conduct, I'm talking about major things such as harassment, theft, retaliations, or ethics violations. Use of town-provided technology and email. We added that the use of technology is a privilege, not a right. Employees are responsible for the content across all technology platforms that they create, send, receive, or download. Abuse of town-provided access may result in denial of future access. And finally, the social media, social networking policy. We expanded the definition. We linked personal postings to our ethics, harassment, workplace violence, and retaliation policies. Made it clear that employees may not post on their social media platforms using town equipment. That employees are solely responsible for their online postings and may be disciplined if it adversely affects other employees, the public, vendors, or contractors. The town has a right to restrict or block access to certain websites. These additions and changes have been approved by both Tom Hale and David Smoke. Yeah, that guy, David Smoke. Do you have any questions?
Okay, we'll start off with.
I'm going to make a move to approve.
Okay, we've got a motion. So now we'll go with questions. And we'll start with Vice Mayor Poplin.
Sorry. Okay.
I have no questions.
Okay, Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, no questions.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, pass.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, pass.
Okay, I have no questions as well. So I'll ask the town recorder for a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Poplin.
I'm sorry, Alderman Poplin, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Alderman Burnett, yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that updates have been approved as requested. Okay, next we'll move on to the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I got two things to report tonight. First is a great bit of news. The town applied for a grant earlier this year for an all-inclusive playground from Blue Cross Blue Shield. And we were just announced yesterday that we did receive that grant. It's a Healthy Places grant. This park and this playground will go in just south of Town Hall on the Town Hall property. It was eligible based on its really flat surface, able to come in right away and get the park started and finished. The board has already approved a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield when you approve the grant and going for the grant. It's a $750,000 grant, which is completely funded by Blue Cross Blue Shield. I really want to thank Sue Stool, our parks director, and all of her staff for putting everything together on that. It's going to be a great addition to our park system, and we're really, really excited about it. So I just want to let the board know about that.
Thank you, Sue. Great job, Sue.
Also, if you go to the Visit Farragut website, we have got tons of different things going on throughout the holiday season for Light the Park. As part of the CARES Act funding that we received, we've got different people out there at the park each night doing giveaways, giving out hot chocolate, doing different events. So as you stroll through the park and as you have a chance to stroll up through Campbell Station Inn and check out the lights as well, just go to that website and you can see the different things that are going on each and every night of the holiday season. And with that, that's all I had to report this evening.
Okay. Then we will we'll go with Citizens Forum. Pursuant to the governor's current executive order, we ask that all Farragut citizens' comments be emailed to comments@townoffarragut.org, which must, along with their name and address, be received by 12 p.m. the day prior to the meeting to be included in the record for that night's meeting. So this is new, okay? We have moved it, and I'll ask David to explain in a minute. They must also abide by the public forum protocol to be read into the record. And I'll let David explain that, and then we will have, if we have any citizen forums, that will be read in.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We were obviously getting quite a few comments over the last few months for both Planning Commission and Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings. It was really taxing our staff to be able to compile all of those and get them completed and put together in time just for the meeting that evening. So what we have done is moved the date to get that turned in the Wednesday or the day before the meeting at noon. Allison, I know this week had highlighted that on the agenda so that people would hopefully be able to see that. I think we did have one citizen's comment that did come in after the agenda time frame should have been turned in for public comment. So we'll go ahead and read that tonight, but in the future, just want to make sure as citizens know to turn them in the day before, and we'll be sticking to that protocol moving forward.
Hey, David, can we ask everyone who's not speaking to mute their microphone, please?
Okay, we do have one speaker tonight. It's Mike Mitchell at 716 Bricksworth Boulevard. Says, where do the people of Farragut and nearby neighborhoods want the new Farragut mixed-use town center? Enclosed are two polls that answer that question. The vast majority of respondents want the original Farragut mixed-use town center concept on Eddie Ford's land. Also enclosed is the original town center concept from Michael Bates. As you can see from the enclosure, the first poll shows out of 368 respondents, 77% do not want the mixed-use town center on the Biddle Farm. The second poll shows out of 168 respondents, 74% want the mixed-use town center on Eddie Ford's land. The original town center plan for Farragut was vertical mixed use with retail on the first floor and condos and apartments on the upper floors. It would resemble Market Square Mall in downtown Knoxville. It would be built on the Eddie Ford farm next to Town Hall. The Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the Farragut Planning Commission have changed the Farragut Comprehensive Land Use Plan and various text amendments and have rezoned the Biddle Farm behind the old Kroger on Kingston Pike to become the new town center. It would be horizontal mixed use with two strip malls that will hold a total of 11 retail shops with a grass median in between them and 300 plus apartments down the street. The project will require 100,000 cubic yards of fill dirt because the land is 4 to 12 feet below the road grade, and half the farm is in the FEMA 100-year floodplain. The peoples are against this. It is not suitable building site. The people can take their protest to FEMA and Tdot if you refuse to listen to us. I object to the actions taken by the Farragut Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the Farragut Planning Commission to fast-track Bud Cullum's proposal and try to freeze out local developer Doug Horn, who has the Ford land under contract for development. The vast majority of citizens who have written email comments on the Cullum proposal are against it. They object to the flawless process which violates Farragut ordinances, the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, and the Tennessee Public Notice requirement. We want to see Doug Horn's proposal. We want the original town center concept, not the Cullum proposal for two strip malls with 11 stores separated by a grass median and 300 plus apartments down the street. This is not a town center. It is just an apartment complex in the wrong place with 11 stores. We do not want Cullum's proposal. Listen to the people. To date, your representation has only been to Bud Cullum and not the people of Farragut. Allow Doug Horn the opportunity to show his vision for Farragut. That's our only comment tonight.
Mayor Williams, this is David. Do you mind if I make a comment real quick on this? I'm going to assume that's okay. I didn't see your mic off. I just wanted to comment. We take, as staff, we take all of these comments that we get seriously, and we also take development projects that we get seriously. to say that the town has been fast tracking this development, I think if you ask any developer if it would take them 9 or 10 months to go through a planning process and still not have the first approval for rezoning or for a site plan approval, they'd probably tell you that that's not really fast. We take anything that comes to us seriously, especially when you're talking about amendments to zones, things like that. We want to thoroughly vet those. Even when we did the Top Golf project just in the last couple of years, that process only took 4 or 5 months, and we completely did a whole new zoning district, created a whole new outlet mall drive up there to where people could have entertainment districts and things like that. So, these processes take time because they need to take time. We need to have public input. In fact, in this process alone, we've had 17 different meetings dealing with either the Biddle Farm directly or dealing with the comprehensive land use plan and amendments to that. That process is still continuing. We still have at least 4 more developments or meetings that would have to take place, would have to be approved in order for the developer to even have a chance to move the first bit of dirt on the property. All those have a chance, and hopefully we'll have plenty of discussion about that. But the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the Planning Commission certainly take all of these comments seriously. They look at those and evaluate those, and then evaluate the ordinances that we have. Obviously, the land use plan, the zoning ordinance, all those things are pieces that we look at to determine whether a project is a good fit or not a good fit. And whoever brings those to us, we evaluate those in the same way. Unfortunately, we haven't had a formal application from anyone else that wants to develop in the town center district yet. When we do, we'll treat them the exact same way and give them the same opportunity to look at all these, for us to look at this in a comprehensive review to determine if that's a good fit for the land and what's being built there. Certainly, we have done our own studies in the past. We've done our own surveys in the past. We want to make sure that when we do those surveys that we're asking open-ended questions and that we're trying to get good feedback from the public. We certainly don't want to sway people's opinions based on just a typical comment or question that we may have. And certainly that can happen. Sometimes if you're asking in a certain way, you may get a certain answer back. So, all of these things we're trying to really be as transparent as we can. I am happy, as Mark is as well, to answer any questions from citizens if they have any that pertain to these projects, give you more education on the projects, talk to anybody about them. So with that, I'll turn things over to the mayor, or even to, I think Mr. Hale had some comments as well on this.
Yes, I do. If I could for a second.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. Sometimes when I hear some of the comments, it makes me think that there's some fundamental things that need to be people need to be reminded about, because there seems to be some sort of misunderstanding about how the process works. And I don't expect everybody in the town to know how it works. That's why we are going through this, so we can make sure people do understand how it works. Development, and I've heard this for the last 20 years, people seem to think that the town is in the development business, that the town drives development processes. We drive the processes, but we don't drive the development. The owners of the land and the people they hire to help them with their development plans, they drive the process. They have to come to us to seek input from the town staff about our processes, and that's what starts the whole thing. It's not the town running out trying to find a project to start. It depends on people that want to invest money in projects on their property to make the thing go. Every project that is proposed is different. Every project has different processes. Every project has different things that have to be approved or dealt with by the town. Working through the process is also driven by the owner of the land and the developer. We have developments in town, and I can think of one in particular out in the Dixie Lee area that has been ongoing for a long time because the developer was taking their time getting everything done that needed to be done to get that project approved. So the process itself is driven, the speed of it is driven by the diligence of the people that are working the process. And that's the people that are hired by the landowner to develop the plan. So we have now received a proposal that the town has been involved in working with. It's the Biddle Farm proposal. The developer of the Biddle, for the Biddle family, contacted the town staff more than a year ago to start discussing the process of this development that is now where it is today. They actually, I think, submitted a plan, the first plan. I may have my dates a little bit wrong, but I don't think so, in March. So they've had a plan on the drawing board that has been going back and forth and discussed with the town staff and discussed in public meetings for those many months. And then before that, they were talking to staff about it, planning to develop their plan. So I've heard a lot of people talk about fairness in the process and needing to be fair to all the people that want to develop their property. That is a no-brainer. We all agree that we need to treat everybody the same way we can based on the relative merits of their projects. But fairness goes both ways. We can't have a plan that's been submitted and has been diligently pursued at great expense to the people who are developing that plan, and then just all of a sudden say, we're not going to continue dealing with this plan anymore because somebody else might put in another plan. Now, we've gotten word that there might be another plan for a town center development in the area based on the comprehensive land use plan, mixed use town center area. If we get that plan, it's going to be treated fairly just like every other plan that we get. We have processes in place. We're going to go through those processes to evaluate and assess the plan, just as we've done with the Biddle project. But fairness demands that we treat the people who are in front of us, who have submitted a plan, they need to be treated fairly too, just like everybody that may come later. We want to treat everybody fair. So let's keep in mind that we have to deal with the things that are in front of us. We can't speculate about things that may or may not happen in the future and somehow adversely affect the people that we're dealing with right now. So we don't know whether this plan that's on the board is going to be approved or not. All we can do is take what they bring us and deal with it in accordance with our processes, which we have done. And I have told you now, this is the fourth time, or maybe the fifth time, I've reviewed the processes that the town staff has used to evaluate and deal with the comprehensive land use plan and all those processes. Everything is in complete order. I have invited people who want to suggest that somehow we've not acted in violation of the law or in accordance with the law. I've invited them to have their attorney who has advised them we're not acting appropriately to contact me, and nobody has contacted me. So again, I don't mind talking about it. I've been wrong before. I'd be happy to talk to somebody that knows something about the subject, but it doesn't do any good for us to have a conversation with people that have already made up their minds about how they feel about it and are not objective. in this letter we're getting here that continues to say we're in violation of the Open Meeting Act, the public notice requirements. It's just not so. If we get another proposal, we're going to, if I have anything to do with it, we're going to, and I think that Mr. Smoke too, we're going to evaluate it, look at it. It's going to be open for everybody to see, just like it's been done for ever since the town has been formed. We're treating people fairly, and we're being even-handed with everybody we encounter. And I think that's the most anybody can ask of us. And I would like to ask people who want to accuse the town staff and the elected officials of somehow acting inappropriately because they favor one thing or another. Everybody has opinions. Everybody's entitled to have opinions. Even elected officials can have opinions. Somebody has to make the decisions. But I can assure you, as I look around and watch the people that volunteer their time to make this town work are not adverse inappropriately to anybody. They treat people all the same. They may not approve every project that gets brought in or approve every request because they think it might not be in the best interest of the town. But you have to look at each of those decisions as they're being made and evaluate each project on its own merits. And here we are getting a lot of discussion about this issue, and we've only got one project that we're even looking at, actually. The second project may be on the way. There's been discussion that it might be, and it'll be treated fairly just like the Cullum Biddle project has been treated. So with that, I think I've said enough, and I'll let you adjourn the meeting.
Hey, thank you, Tom, and thank you, David. Does anyone else have anything to say?
Yes, I move to adjourn.
Okay, the time's approximately 9:16, and without objection, the December 10th, 2020 Farragut Board Mayor and Alderman meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, folks. I appreciate everyone being here tonight.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.